Please. Robert is my colleague on business trade. He's a journalist, also author of more than 2,000 texts of different kinds. Yes. He's also author of several radio speeches, radio texts about the smuggling, and he will tell now something, how modern technology could be used in the smuggling way. I will read now some points in Slovenian language, and then I will to go further. Nočne staze. Društvo bez granica. Projekt vključuje obnovo tihotapskih poti s pomočjo GPS naprav, ki temelji na proučevanju stanovalcev Drenove in Pašica. Projektna skupina, sestavljena iz članov društva bez granica, s pomočjo prečk iskala vse poti, ki so jih prebivalci Drenove in Pašica uporabljali za tihotapljanje. Pot bo posneta z uporabo naprave Garmin GPS in bo ustvarila interaktivni GIS sistem temelječ na Google Maps tehnologiji, ker bo možnost vizualizacije zbranih podatkov. Podatki bodo upleteni s fotografijami iz sedanjosti in preteklosti. Prikazane bodo stare fotografije, na katerih bo videno lokalno prebivalstvo in so pomembne z vidika prepoznavanja posameznikov. Nekdanji udeleženci, ki bomo v prezentaciji videli, se bodo tudi sami odločili, ali želijo ostati anonimni ali pa predstavljeni s svojimi pravimi imeni in priimki.
Pozdravljeni slovenski domaćini, hvala puno na gostoprimstvu. Thank you for your hospitality and the great organization of this event. Pozdravljam sve druge goste iz cijele Europe. Welcome to guests from all Europe. And I will continue in English. Dear host, participants and guests of the Smuggling Anthologies Symposium. Next slide, please. I welcome you on behalf of the Heritage Society Without Borders. The society is based at Drenova, which is one of the oldest parts of Rijeka, the third largest city in Croatia, and the largest port in Croatia. City with turbulent past, but more about that later. Next slide, please. It is a great honor to present on behalf of our society. Let me begin with a few words about our young organization. Without Borders was established only 2 years ago. Heritage Society Without Borders is a non-profit organization established with the aim of preserving the cultural heritage of Drenova and to establish Drenova's Heritage Museum. Members of our society are not scientists with history degrees, but a group of history enthusiasts with different occupations in life. Some of us are IT experts, some are administrative workers, librarians, journalists, or simply pensioners with strong desire to help in preservation of cultural heritage of Drenova. Next slide, please. We are all volunteers, and our first idea was to establish a modern virtual museum. Fortunately, our mission to establish Drenova's Heritage Museum was met with understanding from our city government, and we found space for our museum in one old building in the center of Drenova, which was formerly, in time between 2 great wars, checkpoint for Italian customs. I must say that all this time the main driving force on this path was Mr. Damir Bender, co-founder and president of Heritage Society Without Borders, man behind the camera. There is an interesting story about our participation in the project Smuggling Anthologies. When we saw the call for participation in the project of the Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art Rijeka, which referred mainly to artists, we realized that our story fits perfectly into the required criteria. Because Rijeka region, and especially Granova, was a time between two great wars in divided area, and the border between Kingdom of Italy and Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes, later Yugoslavia, was in the middle of Granova. Although we are not artists and have never participated in similar projects, under the leadership of Mr. Medved, we have created a multimedia installation called Nonićeva tiramola, or Grand Pass Crossing Road, which was elected to Rijeka part of the exhibition Smuggling Anthologies. The multimedia installation, if I may say, was very noteworthy. It was composed of enlarged and printed satellite maps of Rijeka region, and above the installation was a rope, which is a symbolic representation of the real rope above River Riječina. By using this rope, people were smuggling goods from one riverside to the other, from one state to another. On the map, QR codes was pointed to the recorded stories of people who remembered that era between two great wars, who remembered the time of smuggling goods between two countries. These stories are very interesting, and I will talk about some, as well as the socio-political circumstances of the time. Don't worry, just a few words. Next slide, please. As you probably know, and as you heard earlier, Rijeka was in the first half of the 20th century a divided city, through a period of a few decades. Habsburg ruled Austria-Hungary's disintegration in the closing weeks of World War I. In the fall of 1918 led to the establishment of rival Croatian, Serbian and Italian administration in the city. Both Italy and the founders of the new kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes, later the kingdom of Yugoslavia, claimed sovereignty based on their ethnic populations. Next one. In next few years, in 1919, Rijeka was under occupation by Italian nationalist irregulars, led by the poet Gabriele D'Annunzio. Then Rijeka was independent state in 1920. On November 12, 1920, Italy and Yugoslavia concluded the Treaty of Rapallo, under which Rijeka was to be an independent state, the Free State of Union. But in 1944, however, Rijeka went by the Treaty of Rome, signed by Italy and Yugoslavia, but unrecognized by all other powers, which assigned Rijeka to Italy and Sušak to Yugoslavia. Next slide. During these years, Rijeka rapidly economic collapses and becomes a peripheral. The outback of Rijeka shared the fate of its town. The unnatural border halved certain settlements in two, as was the case with Renova and Zamet. This meant that parts of settlements and their inhabitants were left without some basic needs: their school, church, cemetery, and workplace were in different country overnight. Next slide. In these circumstances, in the divided Rijeka region, the lives of ordinary people was very difficult. Next slide. Unnatural border separating families, economy, the whole society. People are dissatisfied, but must take the daily battle for survival. For them, there weren't too many options. They had to learn to live with the border. The border made everyday life is too difficult. Next slide. The border made everyday life all too difficult, but sometimes it brought new possibilities. One of the main ways people wrestled with social systems and state regulations was resorting to smuggling, as one of the main ways of obtaining goods necessary for life. On both sides of the border is a chronic shortage of some items, and resourceful people in need become smugglers. From Yugoslavia to Italy, they were smuggling requested items: tobacco, sugar, coal, eggs, butter, cattle, and wood. From Italy to Yugoslavia, rice, coffee, fruit, wine, textile, umbrellas. Profits in such actions were very plentiful, over 100% profit for some articles. Sugar was hidden in ladies' shoes, in little sacks, and transported over the border. A little boy carried rice in his school bag to his teacher. Little girl hid coffee in her belt with sewing sockets, while going to church with her mother in another country. There are many examples, and some of them are very interesting and inventive. For the purposes of our installations, members of Heritage Society Without Borders have recorded several movies in which we record interviews with our fellow citizens. Some of them were witnesses of these times, and others have found about these events from their elders. In the interviews, they relate the events that marked their childhoods and the lives of their parents and elders. This is some ways of smuggling. Let me bring you closer to just some of these stories and testimonials. One of the most interesting stories is one about a craftsman who worked in the city Sushak and lived in Belvedere. The man had a piece of nice and juicy ham that he wanted to smuggle to his family. But how to do it? His little son loved to ride carrette, improvised a children's little cart, with which it had no problem crossing the border across the bridge every day. The man decided to fix the ham under the carrette, and the problem is solved. Father's only advice to his son was, "The son, be careful because of hungry cats." Next one. Children was often used in actions of this type. In elementary school in Drenova, worked teacher who has lived in the city, and children are often smuggled to her rice and pasta. Children are often wore a special belt to hide and smuggle foods across the border, especially coffee. Children at the border generally was not controlled, but still suffered great fear. One family from Drenova experienced a real odyssey with a brand new big stove or cooker. They had bought in the city under Italian administration. But the stove had to be transferred to Upper Drenova from Italy to Yugoslavia without customs clearance. The stove is first transported to Drenova with simple horse-powered truck, then transferred under the cover of darkness with smaller cut to the wired fence. Several daring smugglers then punctured a hole in the fence, and the stove quickly changed nationality. Next one. But the most dangerous sections were those around the river Ječina, which was partly a natural border between Italy and Yugoslavia. Brave smugglers had built a rope across the river, and by rope they are transported various goods from one riverside to the other: tobacco, oranges, lemons, coffee. These were dangerous sections because they could fall into the cold water from a high cliff. Sometimes, when there was no time to set up a rope, men and women were crossing the river with belts around the body, full of various goods, often in winter, and these actions obviously were not good for their health. The last one, please. It was not easy, it was a hard life, said one of our witnesses. It was not a big-scale smuggling. These people just wanted to their family survive, one of our witnesses says. Conclusion of this subject is best stated by Mr. Albert Mihic, painter from Drenova and witness of those times. He said, "State borders are a bad thing, divide people and create distrust and even hatred. Generally, do not bring anything good." With this thought, thank you for your attention.
Robert, I have some questions because methods how to smuggling. But my question is, how you explain or how you see in the future modern technology and connection with the modern ways of smuggling?
I don't know much about that. My business is not good. I don't know. Unfortunately, today, this is, I presume, big business for some criminal organization. But this is not the topic of my, I don't know, we must fight against, you know, people smuggling, drug smuggling, these bad things that I assume exist today.
I asked this question because years ago when I went to Montenegro, to Lucim, I have a chance to talk with someone who's smuggling. And he's smuggling different things. He didn't explain me exactly what he's smuggling. From Croatia to Montenegro, from Montenegro to Albania to Italy, and everything. Quite good organization and quite good technology. Because when I asked him, the police forces and other things, what do you do against it? Oh, no problem at all. We have modern technology, we have modern boats, modern equipment. Like.
Unfortunately, it's a great industry, criminal industry.
Well, but I can add something on that regarding the European approach. Well, yes, regarding European approach, yes, the smugglers are smart, but I would say the law enforcement is even smarter. There is a number of the projects which are currently ongoing called the Green Border, in which there is a lot of new technology implemented there, like thermal vision and some radars and these kind of things. And it's currently implemented on the Croatian border. It's already operational on some other sites. So when this will be fully active, I think the life for the modern smugglers will be quite difficult, because it's based on a lot of the sensors that are put around and so forth. So I would say something from James Bond technology is not anymore James Bond technology, but is fortunately or unfortunately available today, and it's already been implemented. So I would say in 1 year, we will see some results from that. So that's the way how technology helps smugglers, but also on the other side helps law enforcement. And my current view is that, well, I think law enforcement is now in a much better position than just a few years ago, and it's for sure much better in 50 years or 60 years ago.
Yes,
I think that we could also turn the question and say how technology helps customers and officers to discover the way of new invention of smuggling. But my question would be back to maybe to both of you, as we heard from your contribution, mostly smuggling about material goods and those who all of us are interpreting like necessary goods for survival. What about, because you mentioned maybe about ethnic national identity, how the one part was dominating the other, and that was the aspiration of both parts to dominate the other. So were there any smuggling in spiritual literature goods or books, newspapers, or church manifestos and so on? Was it some kind also smuggling to maintain the identity, ethnic or linguistic identity on the other side?
Yes, of course. Yes, it was v tem času je pač prepovedano slovenske besede, slovenski tisk, slovenske knjige in zato je bilo zelo pomembno, da so poznali te tihotapske, preverjene tihotapske poti, ker so živino čez spravljali. In s temi potmi so lahko vanje nosili čez tudi časopise, knjige, kar je bilo zelo pomembno za držanje prebivalstva. Pravzaprav je bilo zelo preprosto za navadnega človeka takrat se samo naročil pri pismu trgovcu, da bi rad jutro naročil in se dobil jutro. Takrat je šel, pač so ga prenesli čez in se dobil jutro. To je bilo.
Peter said that it was very often because Slovenian war or Slovenian press was forbidden in that time, and it was very often and very well because the local people knows the roads, the smuggling roads, where they smuggling cows and other things, and they use it also for bringing press, newspapers, books in Slovenian language.
Je bilo pa to bolj organizirano posamezniki, ker so samo posamezne ene skupine v pač Črnem vrhu in tista skupina je imela to nalogo, da skrbuje vas slovenskim tiskim. Tako je ta Franc bil, ki sem ga omenila, je bil pač eden od teh organizatorjev v povezavi s vaškim Filipom Kančičem.
I don't know for sure, but I presume, as I know, in the time between two wars in Rijeka was, I think, maybe 10 or 15 newspapers, Italian, Croatian, Hungary, and I think that there's no need for smuggling newspapers. I think
it was more regarding the let's say food smuggling and more this social aspect, financial aspect than this kind of.
In the Rijeka region, people was always mingled, you know.
That was probably more problem for the territory that was deeper between these, or farther away from the boundary, from the border. Because if you're on the border, it's easy to exchange something, but if you're farther away, then it's much more difficult. So probably that's the reason why in Slovenia, in Idrija, you experience this kind of smuggling of the newspapers. But in our case, we were very near the border, so that was probably not the case.
Most fascinating thing about our witnesses is opuštenost.
Relaxed.
They are all relaxed because they think, of course, they are not criminals. This is a way of life, better for survival, ordinary thing.
Yeah, as it was mentioned in the beginning on the other presentation, the smuggling was a way to survive, not to gain any big profit. And that's a testimonials. If you look down there in the exhibition hall at the interviews with the people, always you have this underlying, story that they were doing this for survival, not for the profit.
Ne samo profit, ampak v bistvu je to postalo na koncu tudi politično vprašanje, ker je, vsaj na našem koncu, se pravi organizacija Tiger in njeni člani, če niso bili člani organizacije, ampak ti, ki so se borili proti fašizmu, so poleg vsega ostalega v veliki meri prenašali preko meje, ne samo časopise, ampak tudi drug propagandni material. Se pravi, da to postalo politično početje in zaradi tega tudi kriminalizirano. Se pravi, so na te tihotapce, se pravi, tudi drugače gledali in mnogi med njimi so bili tudi potem obsojeni in seveda tudi posledično na koncu nekateri tudi obsojeni. To je potem ta drugi vidik tihotapljenja, oziroma te poti so potem postale pomembne tudi z drugega vidika.
Samo problem pri tigrovcih, pri teh narodnjakih, sem nadaljujem, sem stavek naprej, imeli so dosjeje kriminalne in v Italiji, in v Jugoslaviji. Vse povsod so bili ožigosani. Kriminalci za ene in za druge. Ker sekretarjena policija jih sedila, ko so prišli sem in na volni strani. Toliko, vedno bo to tako.
So, if I may say something, I'm from Rijeka, also the part of this team of Smuggling Anthologies from the north. So, in order to save the culture, the heritage of Croatians, so they had to gather together at that Croatian part, let's say Serb-Croatian parts of that region. So it was established a kind of library. So this was the place where people could get together, so they had some, I don't know, choirs or played some instruments. So this was very important for political gathering. And we don't know, we didn't pay attention to this, but we could in the future see what was going on during that period in that regard of smuggling cultural heritage or that political opinions.
Some more questions? If you would like
Samo kratko obvestilo organizatorja, just a short notice from the organizer. Now we will take a small break for lunch, sedaj bomo imeli odmor do 2 ure, and after that we will develop that question